Okay, my little ornery granddaughter, who's very special to me, wants me to put some words down on whatever this instrument is. So here it is. My birthday will be in 7 more days, I think, on the 15th of January. I will be 88 years old. I owe all of this to my parents, and I'll have to tell you a little bit about my parents. My dad had kids who went to World War I and brought the flu back, and that killed his wife and 5 kids, and my mother had a husband that had typhoid, and she died, and they got together because the man that ran the elevator talked them into coming to have lunch together, and I'm the oldest of 5 of them. But I have to tell you about my dad because he is what I am today. He's the cause of it. I started, probably my early memory was about 5 years old. My mother was the teacher and my dad was the director of the school, and we were going to a little country school, and Dad had this little thing about it. When Dad spoke, the children moved. If he said, "Son, I want you to go to the barn," and by the time he got through saying go to the barn, we had our hand on the door handle and we were ready to go out and go. We had all these older kids, and then when they got married, I became the oldest of 5 more kids. My mother had 3, so we're in a big family. But Dad put his chair down on all 4s to pray for the food. I never heard him swear. I never heard him say anything nasty about anybody. And he said your word ought to be as good as if you found it in the Bible. And that's the way I have lived, because that's the way I was taught for 9 years until he died. But he must have done a good job because I've never forgotten it. After he died, things were really, really bad. When they got married, Mother had a 40-acre farm and Dad had a 40-acre farm. And they had to decide what to do. And since they moved over by Mother's, they took Mother's farm and let the other one go back. It's the one that had 3 oil wells on it. So they maybe weren't the smartest on doing that, but that's what happened. We were a poor family. Dad was a farmer and a blacksmith, a 160-acre farm to keep his kids busy. And he died when I was 9. That left a family of 11 of us that Mother had to worry about feeding, including herself. Well, we grew up the hard way, and it got to the place where I got to be, well, from 9 years old to 18 years old. That's 9 years of putting up, working from one farmer to another, or wherever I could, to get from 10 cents a day to $2.50 a week at the best. When I got to be 18, I gave my job as a milking man, a dairy man at a hand milking machine company where we served milk to a town. I gave my job to a friend of mine and I went into the Army. 15 days after I became 18, I joined the service, and they shipped me from Michigan on the train over to New York, and from Fort Slocum, New York to Hawaii. And there I had my basic training. And I was watching a program one day right behind the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. A gal came over there. I don't know, didn't see much of the other, but her sister was there and her mother was there. And they came from the other island, and they sat down right in front of me and they began to talk, and we were watching Hawaii Calls. So, well, I listened, and I was sitting between a couple girls that were daughters of a friend of mine, and I wasn't looking for a wife, but the thought came to my head, isn't it about time? You're 19 now, you should be looking for a wife. And boy, I looked at that little girl in her bikini, And I just kept looking, and I don't know. Anyhow, the program got over, and the mother and the daughter went over there on Waikiki Beach, and the mother sat down on a table, and the daughter went swimming. So I went over to get acquainted with the mother. I knew where the daughter was swimming out there, and I visited with her, and that mother was a little jewel. I just really loved, and I said, well, if the daughter can be anything like her, she'd be a good wife. I had just dreaming. But I don't know, the daughter was coming out, and I said I better go. And the mother said, wait, I want you to meet my daughter. Well, I knew where she was all the time, and I knew she was coming out, but I didn't tell her that. Anyhow, she introduced me to her daughter. We visited a little while, and the sister came and picked him up, and she went back to the other island, and the Army had planes, and they had people that had to get the flying time in. So I make it sound big, and I say that I rode a B-18 over there to the other island, and I spent 2 weeks over there, most of my time around that girl. Then I went back home, and by that time we had set a date to get married, and that was the 1st of June. But then I went back. I went about my business, and she was there, and we wrote back and forth. And I tell you the truth, I haven't told Mildred I knew it, but once in a while I'd get a letter that I'm sure her mother wrote. So she introduced me to her daughter, and then I got kind of sweet on her, and she came over, and we had set the date to get married on June the 15th, or June the 7th, first of June, you know, June brides. But anyhow, the war came, and we changed our time, and we got her over there just as soon as we could, and we got married on 17th of March. That was her family's anniversary. So we were married at 17th of March, and Uncle Sam pretty soon chased me down to another island. I need to tell you why we changed the date. The war came, and December 7th, and I was looking out the window at Hickam Field and looking over at Pearl Harbor, and we saw a plane out there, and we said, "Hey, look at that! The Navy's got a new ship." And he said, it's bigger than one of our other ones. I can't think of the name of it now. P-40. It's bigger than the P-40. He said, it crashed. We watched it kind of sink down in, but it didn't crash. It just dropped a bomb. And then it turned up, and when it turned around, made a turn, we could see the rising sun on the wing. And right from there, they started going right down the line at Pearl Harbor, and they banged all of those ships down through there and crash. And about that time, our barracks exploded, and I ran out and ran down the hangar and found a guy there with a broken leg and propped up on a 50 caliber machine gun box, and I called the ambulance. Then I hauled all of our ammunition out across the way because a B-24 had been parked right there by all of our ammunition storage, and it was burning, and I grabbed a tug and hauled all that stuff out. And then a little while later we got together and we got married, and then Uncle Sam sent me down across from island to island to island for I don't know how long a time. And finally we came back home. It took over 5 years for me to get through all of my time overseas. And I came back home and started the business in Michigan. We bought my dad's old meat market building that had become an ice cream parlor and a gas pump. So we bought that, and that's where we started. And our youngest daughter was born there. 2 were born in Hawaii and 1 there. I'm giving you, just as my mind allows me to go back. We went back about that far, and I went ahead and sold my my little store, and then bought a farm, and then traded it for a house, and then then built a grocery store. And then about that time, the Lord said, "Hey, I want you to be a preacher." I just started just because a man came over to buy some groceries, and I wouldn't take his money because he was holding revival at the Methodist Church in Bentley, and I wouldn't take any money from a preacher. And he said, "Well, it would be nice if a prominent businessman were to come and attend the service," because he only had 8 or 9 people. And he kind of applied to my big head. And I said, "Well, if I don't have to work, if there's no outages, I work for the power company in my apprenticeship. If nobody, if we can come home at time, I'll come to church." Well, I shouldn't have said that, I guess, because the Lord would give me perfect weather that day, and it was, and I came home, and so I kept my word and went to church. He gave an invitation, and the Lord said, "This is for you." So I got up and went down there and held his hand like he said to do, and he prayed for me. I don't know what he said. I don't know what the message was, but as time progressed, I just it sunk in that God was there around me all the time, watching me and giving me orders, "Don't do this and do that," and very gently just whispering to me, and I didn't really hear the whisper, but I just knew he said it. And then he called me to go to Bible college. And I went to Bible college, and I've been preaching in many different denominations. I pastored in 7 different denominations because I could get a good job at the power company and go back to work anytime I wanted to, and I could go and leave and come back, and that was it. That's really my life. And now been 20 years I've been retired. But I tell you what, my grandkids come and visit me, and LaDonna is here today. Lavena was here, or was it last Sunday? She came to church, and she and her family and came. I'm so blessed. God has been so good to me, and I try to be faithful. I just commit myself to Him and let Him have His way. And I think that's about all I need to say. You can come and shut this thing off now. Did that give you what you wanted to hear?
I was listening to Grandma. Are you sure you got it all?
Huh?
Are you sure you got your whole story?
Yeah, all I want to tell.
Okay.
What was the last conversation, Dad?
What?
What was the last thing you said?
I don't know. It was